The dusty border town buzzed with cruel anticipation. Under the scorching sun, women stood on a wooden platform, faces pale, eyes cast down. They were brides for sale, their fates sealed by greed and desperation. One by one, voices from the crowd shouted bids, coins exchanged, and futures sold. At the very end of the line stood her, Lydia, the last bride. Her dress, though tattered, still clung to her dignity. Unlike the others, she didn't cry or plead. Her gaze was steady, though her heart pounded beneath her ribs. Men muttered as they passed her over. Some said she was too proud. Others said she was cursed. The auctioneer's voice grew louder, desperate to finish the day. One final bride left. Who will claim her? Strong hands, young, willing to work. Who bids? Silence stretched across the marketplace. The townsfolk whispered, and Lydia felt shame tighten around her like invisible chains. Was she to remain unwanted? To be discarded like nothing? Then, just as the auctioneer was about to end the sale, a rough voice broke through the silence. From the back of the crowd, a man stepped forward. His clothes were worn, boots covered in dust, and his hat shadowed a scarred face. He walked with a limp, every step a reminder of battles lost and burdens carried. His name was Caleb Holt, once known as a gunslinger, now whispered about as a broken cowboy. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Some sneered. He can't even ride proper anymore. Another laughed. What use does a woman have for a man who's half ruined? Caleb ignored them. His eyes, weary but sharp, met Lydia's. In that fleeting moment, she saw something no one else had given her all day: recognition. Not pity, not lust, but understanding. He raised his hand slowly. I'll take her. His voice was steady, though cracked by years of silence. The auctioneer blinked, stunned, then smirked. Well, at least someone's willing. Sold. The gavel struck. Lydia's fate shifted in an instant. She was no longer the bride nobody wanted. She belonged to the cowboy who carried shadows as heavy as her own. Caleb led Lydia away from the jeering crowd, his stride unhurried. The dusty road stretched endlessly, and neither spoke for a long while. Lydia stole glances at him, his scarred hands, his limp, the silent weight in his eyes. He was a man carved by pain, but not destroyed. At last, she whispered, "Why me?" Her voice was barely audible, trembling with both fear and hope. Caleb's jaw tightened. He didn't look at her when he answered. Because no one deserves to be left in chains. His tone was simple, but it carried a depth that struck her heart. They arrived at his small homestead on the outskirts of town. A broken-down cabin, fences leaning, land thirsty for rain. It was not wealth he offered her, but freedom. She realized then he hadn't bought her to own her. He had bought her to save her. That night, as the stars stretched over the desert sky, Lydia sat on the porch while Caleb tended a fire. For the first time in years, she felt a strange, fragile thing stirring inside her: hope. Life on Caleb's ranch was harsh, yet honest. Lydia worked beside him, feeding horses, mending fences, cooking meals. She was no longer an object for sale, but a partner with purpose. Each day, she noticed the walls around Caleb slowly begin to crack. One evening, as they carried water from the well, she saw him stumble. His limp worsened in the chill of night, and the bucket slipped from his grasp. Without thinking, Lydia caught his arm. He stiffened, unused to kindness. "You don't have to carry everything alone," she said softly. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then, with a voice low and almost broken, he replied, "I've lost too much already. I don't want to lose again." She understood. Beneath his scars was a man who had once loved deeply and lost cruelly. Yet by saving her, he had unknowingly saved himself too. With each passing day, their bond grew, not with grand gestures, but in the quiet strength of shared burdens and silent understanding. Two broken souls were beginning to heal in each other's presence. Weeks later, the border town buzzed again, this time with rumors. The bride no one wanted now walked freely, her head high, beside the broken cowboy. The same men who had mocked them now stared with envy, for together they carried something money could never buy: dignity and love. Lydia no longer felt like the discarded girl on the platform. Caleb no longer seemed like the shattered gunslinger. They had rewritten each other's stories. One evening, as the desert sun sank into gold, Lydia stood beside him on the porch. "You didn't save me," she said quietly. "We saved each other." Caleb looked at her then, his weary eyes softening for the first time in years. He reached for her hand, rough against delicate, strong against fragile. And in that simple gesture, the chains of the past finally broke. The border town would forget the auction in time, but for Lydia and Caleb, that day would always mark the beginning. Not of ownership, not of despair, but of a love born from ashes, fierce and unyielding as the desert wind.